I like it because I know one thing for certain is that if you do get married, you must commit yourself to that.
In the later years of his life, Sir Cliff Richard made a confession that touched the hearts of fans around the world. He revealed that Olivia Newton-John, the beloved Australian singer and actress, was the love of his life, and yet she never knew it. This wasn't a short-lived crush or a fleeting romantic thought. It was a deep, genuine feeling that stayed with him for decades. Cliff explained that while they shared a close and warm friendship, full of laughter, mutual respect, and shared experiences, he never told her how he truly felt. The reason was simply he feared losing her friendship. For Cliff, that bond was too precious to risk. To the outside world, he was the charming, ever-smiling pop superstar who seemed to have it all. But inside, he carried the bittersweet weight of a love story that could have been. When this confession became public, it showed fans a side of Cliff they had never truly seen before, a vulnerable, deeply human side. It was the story of a man who had given the world his music and his joy, but who, in matters of the heart, had quietly chosen restraint over chance. That choice would stay with him for the rest of his life. Cliff Richard and Olivia Newton-John first met in the 1970s, a decade that saw both of them rising to incredible heights in their music careers. Cliff was already a British music legend, with a career stretching back to the late 1950s and a string of hits to his name. Olivia, meanwhile, was beginning to conquer the international stage with her soft, angelic voice and wholesome charm. The two crossed paths at music events and television appearances, and from the start, there was an easy chemistry between them. They performed together on several occasions, their voices blending beautifully and their smiles lighting up the stage. Cliff was drawn to Olivia's warmth and humility. Despite her fame, she treated everyone with kindness, never letting her celebrity change the way she dealt with people. As their friendship grew, Cliff began to feel a deeper connection, but Olivia seemed to view him as a trusted friend rather than a romantic interest. Cliff, valuing her happiness and their friendship above all, decided not to confess his feelings. In later interviews, he admitted he sometimes wondered what might have happened if he had taken the risk. Still, he chose loyalty and respect, remaining a constant source of support in her life. By the time Cliff met Olivia, he had already built one of the most remarkable careers in music history. Born Harry Roger Webb in 1940 in Lucknow, India, Cliff moved to England as a child with his family. Music entered his life in his teenage years, and in 1958, he burst onto the scene with Move It, a song many consider the first true British rock and roll hit. With his band, The Shadows, Cliff became a teen idol and earned the nickname, the British Elvis. But unlike many stars of that first rock generation, he adapted as music styles changed. Through the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, Cliff reinvented himself repeatedly, delivering hit after hit. From The Young Ones to Devil Woman, from We Don't Talk Anymore to Mistletoe and Wine, his music reached millions. He became one of the best-selling artists of all time, with sales topping 250 million records. Yet, for all his fame, Cliff remained grounded. He avoided the self-destructive paths that claimed many of his peers. Instead, he built a career on discipline, faith, and professionalism, values that would be tested years later when his private life came under intense scrutiny. Throughout his career, one topic constantly followed Cliff Richard: his love life, or rather, his lack of a public one. While his fans adored him, he never married, and this led to endless speculation. Cliff had relationships in his life, including one with tennis star Sue Barker. At one point, he even bought an engagement ring, but he never proposed. He later said that while he loved Sue, he wasn't ready to give up the life he had built, one that revolved around his music and his independence. For Cliff, marriage was a step he didn't want to take unless he was absolutely certain. The same was true with Olivia Newton-John. Even though he felt strongly for her, he never tried to turn their friendship into something more. Over time, he accepted his single life, saying he valued his freedom and the ability to devote himself fully to his work and causes he cared about. In public, this made him something of a mystery. In private, it meant he could give more time to friends, family, and charity work, though it also meant living with a few what-if moments, the biggest one being Olivia. Years after their first meeting, Cliff and Olivia remained close friends. They kept in touch across continents, supporting each other's careers and personal lives. When Olivia faced her battle with breast cancer, Cliff was there for her. He admired her courage, her positivity, and her determination to keep performing and inspiring others despite her illness. Their friendship was never about the glamour of show business. It was about shared values and respect. Cliff would later speak about how Olivia's strength and kindness left a lasting impression on him. Even though she eventually married and built her own family life, Cliff always felt a special bond with her. When she passed away in 2022, Cliff joined countless others in mourning her loss. He paid tribute to her not just as a star, but as a friend who had touched his life in a way few others had. For him, her death closed a chapter that had begun half a century earlier, a chapter filled with music, friendship, and an unspoken love he had carried in his heart for decades. For much of his life, Cliff Richard enjoyed a clean public image. But in 2014, his name was suddenly dragged into a scandal when he was falsely accused of a historical sexual offense. Although he was never arrested or charged, the media coverage was intense and damaging. The BBC even broadcast live footage of police searching his home, an act that later led to a public apology and a financial settlement in Cliff's favor. For Cliff, this period was one of the hardest of his life. He said the experience made him feel violated and deeply hurt. The support of friends, fans, and his faith helped him through it, but the event left a lasting scar. It was a reminder that even someone with decades of goodwill could find their reputation under threat. In the aftermath, Cliff became more private, choosing to spend much of his time outside the UK. Despite the pain of the incident, he eventually returned to performing, determined not to let the ordeal define his career or his life. One of the most important parts of Cliff Richard's life has always been his Christian faith. He became a committed believer in the mid-1960s and has spoken often about how it shaped his choices, both personally and professionally. His faith influenced the way he handled fame, relationships, and challenges. It was also a source of comfort during his most difficult times, including the false accusations he faced. Cliff has often said that his success is a gift from God, and he has used his platform to support charitable causes around the world. This spiritual grounding helped him resist many of the temptations that fame brings. It also meant that when he made choices, like not pursuing certain romantic relationships, they were guided by a sense of personal responsibility and moral clarity. To some, his faith and single life made him a figure apart from the typical rock star image. To Cliff, they were simply part of staying true to himself. Today, Cliff Richard's career stands as one of the longest and most successful in music history. He has scored hits in every decade from the 1950s to the 2010s, an achievement few can match. But his legacy is more than just numbers on a chart. It's in the way he stayed true to his values, even when fame could have led him astray. It's in his generosity, his charity work, and the quiet dignity with which he has handled both praise and criticism. His unspoken love for Olivia Newton-John has become one of the most poignant chapters in his life story, not because it ended in romance, but because it showed the depth of his loyalty and respect. In an age when celebrity relationships often play out in public, Cliff's decision to protect a friendship over pursuing love is a reminder that not every important relationship needs to follow the usual script. Sometimes, love is expressed in the choice to simply be there for someone without expecting anything in return. Looking back, Cliff Richard's life is a tapestry of triumphs, challenges, and moments of quiet reflection. He has been a pop icon, a devoted friend, a man of faith, and someone who has faced both the adoration of millions and the sting of public suspicion. His story with Olivia Newton-John adds a layer of bittersweet humanity to his public image. It's a reminder that even the brightest stars have private hearts and personal histories the world never fully sees. For Cliff, the love he carried for Olivia was not wasted, even if it was never returned in the way he hoped. It was part of what made him who he is, a man who could give his heart without conditions. As he continues to perform and inspire, his story remains one of resilience, grace, and the quiet power of unspoken love. Cliff Richard's music may have defined generations, but it's his humanity, his ability to love without expectation, that will be remembered just as deeply. Perhaps the most moving part of Cliff's unspoken love for Olivia is how it represents a universal experience. The what-if moments that almost everyone carries in their own lives. Many people have felt the tug of a deep affection they never confessed, whether out of fear, respect, timing, or circumstance. Cliff's story makes it clear that love isn't always about getting the answer you want. Sometimes it's about cherishing the connection you do have, even if it never becomes something more. In a world where fame often pushes celebrities to share every detail of their personal lives, Cliff chose to keep this part of his heart private for decades. That choice speaks volumes about his character. He wasn't trying to protect a public image, but rather the delicate, irreplaceable friendship he shared with Olivia. For him, that was worth more than any romantic outcome. Over the years, fans have often asked if he regretted not telling Olivia how he felt. Cliff has hinted that yes, sometimes he does wonder. He admits that life might have been very different had he spoken up. Yet, he also says that he is proud of the way their friendship endured. And maybe that wouldn't have happened if he had taken the risk. It's a delicate balance between longing for what could have been and being grateful for what was. That is the essence of maturity in love, accepting that it can take many forms, and not all of them fit the fairy tale ending. Cliff's continued success in his later years shows that his story is far from over. He still records music, tours, and delights audiences around the world. But there is also a quieter side to his life now. Time spent away from the spotlight, moments of reflection, and a focus on the relationships and causes that truly matter to him. Olivia's memory remains a part of that inner world, a reminder of both the joy and the ache of loving someone from a distance. For his fans, the revelation of this unspoken love has only deepened their affection for him, because it shows that behind the fame and glamour is a man who has lived, loved, lost, and learned, just like everyone else. And maybe that's why Cliff Richard's story continues to resonate. He is more than a musician, more than a cultural icon. He is a man who has walked through decades of change with his integrity intact, who has faced storms without losing his kindness, and who has carried a love in his heart without letting it fade into bitterness. His music will always be a part of his legacy, but perhaps his greatest gift to the world is the example of how to live. With courage, with gratitude, and with the quiet, steadfast kind of love that asks for nothing in return.